everybody. It is great to be here again today. My name is Gary Fowler, and I am the host of the Founders Report. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've done 17 companies, been involved in 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also a co-founder of Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company. I'm the CEO, president, and co-founder of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in Silicon Valley. We believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread, but opportunities aren't, and that's why we started GSD. So with me today is Vit Hannes. Vit is an investment professional in the CEE. He's an engineer. He's an entrepreneur. He's a traveler. He's got a PhD. I mean, he's got a lot of stuff going. I met him recently, and I wanted to talk to him about, let's talk about doing business and the CE. Let's talk about entrepreneurship. So, Vit, great to have you here today.
Thank you very much, Gary. It's my pleasure to be here.
So, tell me a little bit about it. So, you grew up. Were you originally from Prague, or were you originally from that area?
Yeah, so originally I'm from a very small village or small town in Czech Republic in Krkonoše Mountains. But when I was studying, I came to Prague for the first time for the university. Then I was traveling for the studies, and I simply decided that the business is more in the capitals, and that's basically why I'm living in Prague, Bratislava, and I'm kind of doing business here.
So, Vit, what's the difference between how close is Bratislava to Prague?
It's approximately 350 kilometers. So it's not that far, I would say.
Interesting. And, tell me a little bit about it. So you got your master's degree in civil engineering, then you went on for a master's degree in entrepreneurship. What flipped the switch and you said you were going to go from being an engineer to being an entrepreneur?
It was actually a very pragmatic decision because when I was finishing my civil engineering studies, I realized that I'm not a traditional engineer for the business, for the type of industry. And with my best friends, we started our first startup, which was a company producing luxury concrete furniture. We developed
what kind of furniture?
Concrete furniture.
Concrete?
Yes, concrete furniture.
Uh-huh.
Those were ultra thin shells from the concrete, reinforced by carbon. So the concrete is really quite light. It might be just 1 centimeter thick, and you can create whatever shape you want, which basically gives you a flexibility to do a different stuff, even into the indoor furniture, like sinks, baths, or kitchen countertops, and so on. And we simply established the business. And very soon I realized that doing business is not about the technology itself and materials, but it is about the entrepreneurship business. And I realized that I know nothing about financials, I know nothing about legal and so on. And I simply realized that I need to study another university, and I went for my second master's degree.
Wow, that's amazing. And so as you've gone down through it, what was the biggest lesson that you learned as being an entrepreneur that something you didn't know that once you became an entrepreneur, you understand now is really important?
The really best one was thinking about the team, people, and how to run business. At the very beginning, I always thought that running business is about having the all-star team. But very soon I realized that no one is looking for the team full of stars, but everyone is looking for a stellar team. And this was the biggest realization I had, that simply having a good composition of people, but it's about the chemistry in between these people and how it works more or less as a big machine, not only individuals, was the biggest lesson which I very quickly learned.
What made you come up to that conclusion, though? Did you have some problems on your team, or what happened?
Yes, definitely. We were people quite exceptional, each of us in a very specific way, but together it did not work very well. So after quite some time, one of the founders started the competing business run by himself and so on. And it was a realization where simply it was very clear that together it did not work. And from that point on, right now as a partner in Zero Gravity Capital, I'm always considering whether the team itself is working pretty well, and it's more or less about the founders and founding team, whether they are able to sustain the growth, whether they are able to sustain the problems and everything. And this is one of the key things which we shall assess.
Interesting. So tell me a little bit about this concrete furniture. It sounds interesting. Would people put it inside their houses?
Definitely, like part of my house is built from it. I still have the prototypes home, and yeah, definitely.
So when you have this furniture in there,
Yes, yes, yes.
is it heavy?
It is not that heavy, I would say. If you think about the table, if you have a real like good proper wooden table, which is handmade manufactured, it will weigh approximately 100 kilos. If you compare it to the concrete one, it will be definitely a bit heavier, but it is still possible to make really huge table with 150 kilograms, which is not that much. If you look at the kitchen countertops, currently people are using natural stone. The concrete, which is well sealed, polished, and so on, it has quite the same properties, as marble, and the weight is even a bit lighter. So yes, it is, I believe, quite comparable to natural stone, and you can find a lot of natural stone products in your home. And why not use concrete?
Yeah, no, I know. I have quartz in my countertops, and I know bringing them up, they're incredibly heavy. Bringing those up, that's interesting. So, how long were you in business in the concrete business?
I've been developing business for 4 years, which was also the time of my core studies, PhD. So I've been basically doing it in the material engineering and concrete business. So I leveraged a lot of time of my PhD focusing on this business simply and these technologies. So it was 4 years more or less. Unfortunately, we have not been that fast. So when we were starting in Europe, there were roughly 5 competitors across the whole Europe. But after the 4 years, when the development was completely finalized, we've been commercially producing it and so on. There were already, let's say, 30 competitors in the market. So it became more or less a regional business than the one which we've been desiring at the beginning, being the leader of the whole Europe and to be the only ones doing it in a mass scale.
Interesting. And so you did your summer internship at Ernst Young. At what point, going down through it? So then you did you were at a bank, right? When did you start to say, I'm really liking this entrepreneurship stuff? Was it then where it started to spark your activity? Because sometimes you work in a bank, you don't get a chance to really be yourself and to be an entrepreneur. In fact, the first MBA program at Harvard was started to teach managers how to manage, not to how to be entrepreneurs, right? In fact, risk and all that sometimes in large organizations is not something that people want to talk about, right? They want to talk about how to go straight, how do people work together. It's not how to, be bold. So
I would most probably call it a transformation. So I started very ambitious at the university, started with my first entrepreneurship and so on. And as I was growing with the business, I very soon realized that there is a lot of things which I am missing from the hard skill. And hard skill, I mean also knowledge. And as I was finishing my second master degree, the business was kind of mature. I realized that there are a lot of things which I have an interest in. I was very curious about finance by that time and so on. And when we decided to exit the company, I soon realized that there is no, let's say, bright idea to start another startup. And also I was quite exhausted after the first one. I realized that I want to try something else and to leverage all the knowledge, not only from the technical field, but also from the management and so on. And I decided to go for the Ernst Young valuation and business modeling, and really to look into as many businesses as possible, as I was doing mostly due diligences. I've seen a lot of industries, a lot of topics from different fields, and it gave me a general knowledge of business. And after that, I was simply considering what might be the next move. I definitely felt after work in the bank that corporate world is not for me. And Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey, those were nice options to move, because I saw really like fresh ideas, bright people working there, the great team, and very inspiring environment, which can teach me a lot of businesses within 1 year, a lot of hard skill, and I simply went for it. So it was, I would call it transformation process, and I started first as a simply startup or entrepreneur, but then I wanted to have the bigger perspective.
And when, a lot of the people never leave McKinsey, right? They stay forever and they go down through. And what's the difference between somebody that's in McKinsey and somebody that's an entrepreneur in your perspective?
Wow, it's a great question. There are a lot of differences. At the end of the day, I saw a lot of entrepreneurs going for McKinsey track, and I also saw a lot of McKinsey people going for the entrepreneur track. So I believe there is one fundament, which usually is a passion, which usually is an energy, and so on. And this is similar. What is different is that when if you are long-term working for a consulting, you are having some kind of habits, shortcuts, and so on, and it is still just a job. You know how to do it. It's the same as the school. If you are the first semester in the new university, you are like surprised with some stuff, you are scared of some stuff, of some exams and so on. After 4 years at the university, you pretty know well how it works, so you know how to work in the environment. In the entrepreneurship, there is every single day something so new and so surprising that you need to be extremely flexible. In the consulting, after a couple of years, you know already all the practices, you know all the tips and tricks, how to do it and so on, and you are more or less repeating it. At the end of the day, it is about the responsibility. Of course, that you have a responsibility for any single output you are delivering, either in the top tier consulting or in the entrepreneurship, but the ultimate responsibility of making a decision, because in a consulting you are not making decisions, more or less you are more or less observing, and you are advising how to make decisions.
Yeah, and you're not taking the risk either.
Yes, that's the biggest difference.
Now, there's a difference between taking the money out of your pocket and talking to somebody about how they should take the money out of their pocket, right?
And that was the reason when sooner or later, or at the very beginning, I always knew that I'm not a material for being a long-term consultant. I went there for a knowledge. I went there for great track and being more experienced. But it was never my desire to go there and to become a partner. And then I received an offer to go for the venture capital track, to lead a fund, to become a partner in a fund. I saw the chance to still do a lot of businesses, see a lot of businesses. On the other hand, being responsible for the capital which we have in the fund, and for every single decision which I'm doing in my life.
Interesting. And so you did this. What is Spacey? What was that?
Spacey. Spacey is a startup of my friend. I was offered to come there for 1 year as a transformation manager, COO, helping them with the business. It's a technology startup in PropTech, developing hardware, sensors, but also software. Right now they are quite booming as COVID solution, which they have for being able by sensors to measure the freshness of air in the office space, but also the occupancy, how people behave and what they do, everything GDPR compliant and so on. It's kind of, I would say, niche for current situation, which is happening all around us.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I had the top VP of Intel for the Internet of Things on, and we were talking about those types of devices in the future. It's very, very interesting. Okay, so let's go to zero gravity. So tell me a little bit about you. Start out as investment principal, and what are you looking at? What are you? You're on the investment committees. You got portfolios of companies. What kind of companies you're looking for? Where are those companies located? What stage of those companies?
Mhm. So Zero Gravity Capital is a Slovak venture capital fund, but with kind of international background and international team. We are team sitting in Slovakia, Czech Republic, Cyprus, Israel, Nordics. So we are leveraging simply all the network which we've been able to build so far. We are early stage fund. So with the capital which we have, we are mostly investing into seed or early Series A investments here in the region. We are not limited geographically, so far we've been investing into our local CEE investments, but we have also one company from Netherlands, one company from Israel. Right now we are discussing with a couple of US companies, and we are trying to find technology-backed startups. So I believe the fundament is technology for us. That's a signature, where we are trying to find businesses which have some kind of a competitive edge or competitive barriers for others to enter, with ambitious founders, and where we see the added value of our active approach, where we are able to help them to be scaled either through the Central Europe, Nordics, Middle East, but also US, where we have a extensive network, extensive connections, and where we are sitting simply as a team.
How many companies do you have in your portfolio today?
Currently, we have 9 companies in our portfolio, but those were 7 investments, because some of those were already holdings with multiple businesses being run under one team of founders. So 9 is the number. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the companies and what are they focused on?
Mm-hmm. So from the verticals, we've been so far quite strong in SaaS, B2B business, enterprise software. But those which are really stellar, one I can talk about is Power of Medical. Power of Medical is AI and machine learning algorithms which can predict, based on the ECG scan, the probability of cardiovascular disease. They have currently the second largest database of ECGs on which they've been training the algorithm in the world. They are, I believe, recognized by top 10 cardio tech software. Another one is location analytics called License in Israel, or we could eventually talk about another PropTech company here in Slovakia called PropTech Group, City Performer. So there are multiple businesses which are either usually machine learning AI-based companies, but already with finalized MVP, commercial traction, and so on.
Okay, so now let's paint a picture. I'm curious. So companies in Prague and they want to go global. How do they do it today? I mean, in terms of how do you get them the right kind of valuation? Because I don't know what the valuations are right now today in the Czech Republic or in the region, but generally they're a bit less in Silicon Valley, right? So how do you go down through and how do you prepare a company to go global? How do you recommend? What do you recommend for them?
Yeah. So there were 2 questions, I believe. The first one is evaluation. Here in the Central Europe, still the valuations are a bit lower. We are not in Silicon Valley. but also costs are not here as in Silicon Valley. So I believe the companies are providing the same share, but for smaller amount of capital, simply because developing software in Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, or Hungary is definitely way cheaper than doing it for the price rate which you can find in Silicon Valley. So valuations, I believe, are twice lower than in the United States. But as there is kind of a big competition in between venture capital funds and investors, simply there needs to be an active support or something else what you are offering in order to be able to win the bid and to onboard the company to the portfolio. So how we are preparing them for the international expansion is on multiple levels. First, you need to teach them all the stuff which they need internally. So it's about legal organization, scaling, but also about the infrastructure, how to set up a cloud for international businesses. If you are going to the US, of course, you need to have a specific cloud. The data needs to be stored in US and so on. So there are a lot of specifics which founders starting with their business here locally are not aware of, because they've been never scaling business abroad. So they don't know about this specific, about the continental versus common law and a lot of stuff where the business simply needs to be adjusted. So first phase is that we are starting and we are really helping them with the fundamentals of business and enablement, how to be able to be scaled. And second, it is about the business model and discussing with them how to scale the company, to scale, like what is the channel sales, what kind of channels they can use, whether they need their presence or not, interconnecting them at the latest stage to our contacts, leveraging all the connections which we have there, and trying to help them with the first business, and then advising how to roll it out at a fast pace. So it's a set of multiple things which we are doing. Some of these are internal and more or less administrative. Some of these are practical on site and really helping with the business itself.
What about my partner today is in Ethiopia and then to South Africa. There's a lot of opportunities on the African continent and India. What do you advise? I mean, because the world is such a wide open opportunity, do you advise those companies? Do they go over? Do they reach out to India or to Africa today?
It's an interesting question. We need to realize the stage of each country, each continent, and so on. Something what is right now the disruptive innovation in US most probably would be too difficult, heavy, and complex for the developing regions. What we are seeing, and one of our partners in the fund, Marek Zamečník, he was working for the Rocket Internet in Asia, and simply understanding that something what is already here working for 5 years, like delivery of food and so on, might be the bright new idea. And doing business in these developing regions right now works more or less as a copycat. People are finding what is the right stage there, because unfortunately these regions are still a couple of years behind us, and you can replicate it. So doing something what is extremely disruptive right now here in our region and trying to penetrate with it, Africa and so on, might most probably not work, but doing it in a different way, thinking about stuff which is missing there in comparison to our already developed regions, and transferring it there and developing it there, or replacing and scaling it there, is a brilliant idea. And simply it is proven by these like Rocket Internet and so on that it works pretty well. So I would always consider for each founder and business what is the stage of the market which you would like to enter, whether this market is already ready for it or not, and whether this might be a good option and opportunity to do so. In some cases it might, in some cases simply it's too early for doing it, but that does not necessarily mean that in 2-3 years the market will be ready for such solution. It's always about timing.
It's interesting because you have companies like Flutterwave or Patricia that have gone from nothing to $500 million, $1 billion valuation in terms of flood arrays, that actually, because they're in fintech and they didn't have the infrastructure that we have in other parts of the Western world, they've been able to skip it and develop some incredible technology. So the opportunity we're seeing is for those kind of companies to come to the Czech Republic, to come to Europe, to come to the U.S., with their technologies really ready to, expand globally. It's interesting. Listen, we're coming to the top of the hour. Closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you, Bit?
I'm sorry, Gary, I misheard right now.
We're coming to the end of the show.
Okay.
How do people get a hold of you, and what are your closing thoughts?
I'm more than happy to see anyone and to discuss with anyone. So if you would like, definitely feel free to connect through the LinkedIn or to find me at the Zero Gravity Capital website, where are all the contacts. And about the final ideas, I believe people are developing. I see that myself, I was developing a lot, and people shall not be scared to do a huge transformation or change, to really switch from anything you are doing right now to anything you would like to do. And that's basically the making a decision and pushing it is the best way to really succeed. So it doesn't matter whether right now you're a big startup or being employed and so on. If you want something, do not be afraid of feeling either too late and so on, but simply do it. And do not be afraid of new markets. Don't be afraid of new regions. I believe a lot of people might be scared of Central Eastern Europe. On the other hand, you'll be quite surprised how regular it is in here in comparison to Western Europe or US.
Yeah, no, you're right about it, Vit. I had lunch with Scott McDeely, who founded a company a number of years ago called Sun Microsystems. And I remember we had lunch, and we were it's about 3 years ago. And I remember him saying that always go to areas that you fear the most, because you're going to learn the most and there's the most opportunity. And it's not easy, but if you reach out and you go out and try, get stuff done, believe in your dreams, believe in yourself. You got to look yourself in the mirror, straight in the eye, and say, listen, I really want to do it. And don't just talk about it, because when it's all said and done, it's about the execution. Vid, I appreciate you coming on my show today. It's great to have you. Great to see you again. To my audience, my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm the host of the Founders Report. It's great to be here. I'd like to thank the entire LaToken team on VCTV for making the show possible, particularly Hasmek and the rest of the team. Stay tuned again. I'll be back in 2 weeks for another edition of the Founders Report. Stay happy, stay safe, and most importantly, stay healthy. See you later.